Welcome back to another explainer. So, I was recently digging through some epic literature, and I stumbled across this absolutely profound exchange in the Mahabharata. It's this fascinating conversation between the mighty warrior Bhima and his elder brother, the super-wise monkey chief Hanuman. What starts out as a really simple, kind of mundane request literally spirals into a cosmic masterclass on the very nature of existence, the cyclical decay of virtue, and the irresistible force of time.
Okay, let's dive into this by looking at how this whole thing actually kicks off. We've got Bhima, who is just absolutely thrilled to run into his brother Hanuman. And, like any younger brother, he wants to see his older siblings' glory days. He basically says, "I desire to behold, O hero, that incomparable form of thine." Bhima wants Hanuman to show off that magnificent, gigantic shape he took way back in the ancient past, when he famously bounded over the ocean. Bhima's convinced that just seeing this past glory will bring him ultimate satisfaction. He really wants to look back.
But Hanuman, he meets this request with a gentle smile and a really profound refusal. He tells Bhima, look, neither I nor anyone else can behold that form anymore. Why? Well, because that form belonged to an entirely different age. And here Hanuman introduces this powerful thesis. The ground, the rivers, the plants, the gods, even the sages, literally everything must conform to time. Time is this irresistible force, and Hanuman himself is just conforming to the tendency of the current age. Which of course naturally prompts Bhima to ask, well, what are these different ages? How do they even work?
To answer him, Hanuman lays out a highly structured, almost mathematical breakdown of cosmic time. Here is the exact roadmap we'll be exploring today. First, the Krita Yuga, or the perfect age. Second, the Treta Yuga, where virtue decreases. Third, the Dwapara Yuga, the Great Divide. Fourth, the Kali Yuga, the Iron Age. And finally, we'll look at the absolute, irresistible force of time.
Looking at this chronological journey from Epoch 1 down to Epoch 4, keep in mind, this isn't your typical story of progress. It's actually a story of descent. We're going to see a very specific structural decline in the state of the world, in human nature, and in virtue itself.
Let's start with Section 1, the Krita Yuga, the perfect age.
At the very beginning of the cycle, Hanuman explains that the virtue of the four orders of society is completely intact. It exists in this perfect, fourfold measure. There's absolutely zero deterioration of virtue, and because of that, people themselves don't decrease or degenerate. It's an era of absolute, unbroken spiritual perfection.
Notice this really striking visual marker Hanuman uses for this era. The supreme soul, Narayana, takes on a brilliant white hue during the Krita Yuga. This pure white color perfectly symbolizes the pristine, totally unblemished nature of the age. It was a time when the identification of the self with the supreme was literally the only religion anyone even needed. The day-to-day reality of the Krita Yuga is honestly kind of hard to comprehend today. Hanuman tells Bhima there was no buying, no selling, there wasn't even any manual labor. Imagine that. If you needed something to live, you obtained it simply by thinking about it. No 9-to-5 grind at all. And because of this perfect harmony, there was no disease, no decay of the senses, no malice, pride, fear, or misery. Plus, there was no religious division. Everyone shared one uniform soul as their object of meditation, they followed a single Veda, and there was only one mantra, Om. It was a time completely devoid of conflict.
Section 2. The Treta Yuga, virtue decreases.
But, as Hanuman explains, time is an irresistible force, right? So perfection just can't last forever. In the Treta Yuga, the mathematical decay actually begins. Virtue decreases by exactly 1/4. So we are now operating at a 3/4 capacity of righteousness. It's still a highly virtuous time, for sure, but that initial effortless perfection, that's gone.
And this brilliantly illustrates the shift. Narayana's hue changes from pure white to red. This color shift to red is incredibly symbolic because the Treta Yuga is defined by the introduction of active religious rites and sacrifices. Red signifies this new energy, the blood of sacrifice, and the deliberate active effort that's now required by humanity.
Because virtue is decreased, mere thought just isn't enough to get what you need anymore. The shift from thought to action is absolute. Hanuman notes that in the Treta Yuga, men have to begin devising means to attain their objects. You have to actively perform sacrifices, give gifts, and do specific acts to achieve your goals. That single, effortless meditation of the past is completely replaced by required effort. Now, society hasn't fallen completely apart yet. people are still heavily devoted to truth, they stick to their respective duties, and practice deep asceticism. They just have to work a whole lot harder at it now.
Section 3. The Dwapara Yuga, the Great Divide.
The wheel of time turns again, and society truly begins to fracture. The math here is stark. Religion and virtue decrease by an entire half. We are literally down to 50% capacity. That perfect harmony of the Krita Yuga is now just a distant memory, replaced by a world that is profoundly divided.
In this era, Narayana wears a yellow hue. Yellow here reflects a very transitional, increasingly chaotic period. It represents a world largely driven by multiplied acts and, crucially, by passion, which rapidly begins to cloud the pure truth of the earlier ages.
The absolute defining characteristic of the Dwapara Yuga is human incapacity. Hanuman says that human intellect decreases so much that people can no longer study or comprehend the entire truth. It's almost like the original information overload. Because of this, the original, single Veda, has to be divided into 4 separate parts. Some people know 4, some 3, some 1, and some don't know the scriptures at all. And as people fall away from the truth, the physical world reacts. Diseases, lust, and natural calamities begin to plague humanity. And while people do still perform sacrifices and penances, their motivations have completely shifted. They're largely influenced by passion now, performing these acts merely to enjoy the good things of life or to attain heaven, rather than out of pure devotion.
Section 4. The Kali Yuga, the Iron Age.
This degeneration paves the way for the 4th and final stage of our descent, an era of profound corruption. Hanuman tells Bhima that in the Kali Yuga, only a single quarter of virtue miraculously abides. Just a mere 25% remains. The world is practically running on the fumes of righteousness.
Visually, this shift is absolute. Narayana now wears a black hue. This is the darkest era in the entire cycle of time. The black color signifies the total obscurity of truth, the dominance of ignorance, and the heavy, oppressive nature of existence in this final waning age.
The realities of the Kali Yuga are grim, to say the least. The Vedas, virtue, and sacrifices essentially fall completely into disuse. Instead, the world is ruled by disease, lassitude, anguish, and anger. Hanuman points out a very specific plague of this era, the reign of what's called iti. These are 6 specific things completely hostile to crops and survival: excessive rain, severe drought, infestations of rats, swarms of locusts, destructive birds, and the constant threat of a neighboring hostile king. It's a time of immense scarcity and fear. And worst of all, the spiritual decay is so deep that any religious acts performed at the waning of this yuga actually produce contrary effects. It's like the very mechanics of the universe themselves seem entirely broken.
Section 5. The irresistible force of time, conforming to the ages.
Having laid out this massive chronological descent from absolute perfection to chaotic darkness, Hanuman brings the conversation right back to Bhima's original request. So the crucial point is, as we consolidate this magnificent pattern, we see that as the yugas wane, virtue dwindles. As virtue dwindles, creatures degenerate. And as creatures degenerate, their very natures undergo deterioration. The white purity of Krita fades to the red action of Treta, fractures into the yellow passion of Dwapara, and finally sinks into the black despair of Kali. Hanuman's ultimate lesson is that even those mighty beings who live for several yugas, like himself, must conform to these changes. He literally cannot show Bhima his past form because that form belonged to a completely different matrix of reality. He's conforming to the tendency of the age, because time is absolutely irresistible.
Hanuman concludes his epic explanation with a beautifully blunt question for his brother. He asks, why should a wise person be eager to know a superfluous matter? You see, Bhima was so caught up in wanting to see a glorious past that he was completely ignoring the reality of the present. Hanuman is telling him that dwelling on an inaccessible past or wishing for the conditions of a previous age is completely superfluous. It's just a massive waste of energy for a wise person.
Which leaves us with a truly profound takeaway from this ancient text. Hanuman's masterclass isn't just a history of mythological time, it's a lesson in radical acceptance. We cannot fight the irresistible force of time, nor can we exist in an age that is already past. So as we wrap up this explainer, I'll leave you with this to ponder. Are you, like a wise person, finding a way to conform and act righteously within the realities of your own present age? Or are you, like Bhima at the start of our story, wasting your energy longing for a past you can no longer reach?